Hello and welcome to Maki's Closet. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this beautiful corset with side basque and a structured sleeve that has a 3D design on it. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. So let's dive right into today's video. So for the first part we're going to work on is the front, and I've gone ahead to cut out all my pattern. So I added ½ inch round on this part, and I cut it on fold. So this is the lining piece and this is the crepe that I'm going to use. So I'm going to iron stay to the crepe and iron gum stay to the lining. So on this part I went ahead to add ½ inch on this part also, and I cut out two pieces because this side has two sides, and I'm going to iron gum stay to the lining and stay to the crepe fabric. So after that I'm going to go ahead to join it with ½ inch, stitch with ½ inch on this part and stitch with ½ inch. So whatever you do on the main fabric, go ahead to do it on the lining also. So here is my pattern and I've gone ahead to join it. I ironed stay just like I said, and this I ironed gum stay on it. So the next step is to go ahead to create boning channels on this. You can go ahead to stitch down what you have at this point, or you can go ahead to use this to create extra boning channels on it at the back. So I went ahead to stitch my sewing allowance and then use this also to create the boning channels at the back. So you can create as much as you want. So here it is. I've gone ahead to create about 5 boning channels. So I cut out a mesh and I'm going to place it on it. You can double your net or mesh. So I'm going to go ahead to top stitch on it. So on this part, this is my cup. I added ½ inch round. I cut out 4 pieces. So 2 is for the lining and 2 is for the main fabric. So I did this also on the other side. So now to work on the cup, I'm going to go ahead to place each piece together. So my cup A with my cup B on each side, then go ahead to place the lace on it. So my lace is not beaded, so I'm just going to place it directly on it, and I'm going to be stitching it with ½ inch. But before I go ahead to stitch it with ½ inch, I'm using a foam bra or bra foam, whatever one you call it, and I'm going to go ahead to iron it on each of them, and then I'm going to stitch with ½ inch. Just go ahead to place it. If you're using a wadding, you're going to use the same process, but if you're making use of an already made cup, go ahead to stitch up your pattern and attach your cup with a hemming gum, or stitch your cup down. So this is my cup after I'm done attaching it, and I've gone ahead to trim out the excess I have on the cup. So trim it so that all those little foams will not make your cup to be very bulky. And I repeated the same process on this, and I'm going to go ahead to attach it. So that joining at the middle, find the joining on the body of your corset, pin it down, and you're going to place and check if it aligns with the body. So mine aligns, and I'm just going to go ahead to pin it. So if yours does not align, you're going to go ahead to create or notch the body of the corset, that's the space for your cup, to make sure it matches. So on this side I'm going to repeat the same process, pin it down, and I'm going to pin the sides. So while pinning this side, I noticed that the space I have for the cup was a little smaller, and I went ahead to notch it and pin it. So go ahead to stitch your cup with ½ inch. So after stitching it, this is what I have, and now we're going to work for the yoke. For the yoke, I cut out 2 pieces. Remember to add your sewing allowance at the upper part and underneath it. So I went ahead to stitch up my yoke, and I cut off the excess I have, and I'm going to go ahead to pin this down on both sides. After pinning it down on both sides, I'm going to be joining the pattern with ½ inch. So make sure that you're pinning with 1/2 inch and go down and join it with 1/2 inch on your sewing machine. So after I'm done joining, this is what I have. Now I'm going to be joining the yoke. Go ahead to turn it this way and you're going to pin it down and stitch on that same 1/2 inch that you're using joining your yoke. So this is mine. After I'm done joining, go ahead to stitch the sides of your corset. So after I'm done stitching it down, this is what I have, and as you can see, it's looking very neat and clean. So notch the allowance you have at the upper part, or go ahead to stitch it down to your lining when you're done sewing. So now I'm going to fold this into 2, notch the center, and from there I'm going to take notes so that when I'm joining my corset or when I'm shaping it to a side basque. So I'll go ahead to place my tape at my underbust, which is 12, and mark my waistline, which is 17. So you want to take note of that so that your waist line at the back and at the front will match. Go in by your sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inches that we used, and now I'm going to be creating the side basque for my corset. So after creating it, after marking it out, I'm going to go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, this is what my pattern or my dress looks like. So next we're going to work on the back. I went ahead to add 1/2 inch on the yoke part, and this is what I have. I cut out the lace for it, and I'm going to place and I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch. So on one part I'm going to be creating a loop because we are going to be attaching a loop on that side. So I'm done sewing. This is what I have. So now I added 1/2 inch on this part of my pattern or dress, and I'm going to go ahead to find where my yoke is going to start. Go ahead to notch that part. After I'm done notching it, I'm going to go ahead to place my yoke on the fabric this way and pin. So after pinning it, you're going to go ahead to pin the main fabric before attaching the lining of the dress to it. So this is the lining for the lace and or the material, let's say the doll face that you're going to see after getting the lace. So after doing this, you're going to attach the lining which has gum stay on it. So repeat this also on the back of the other side this way. Place it, and you're going to go ahead to find the notched part, place the back on it, and you're going to go ahead to pin it down. So after pinning down, it's time to attach the lining part, and on the lining I have ironed gum stay on it. So the reason why I normally iron gum stay is to give the dress more strength, so or to make it more stable. So I'll go ahead and pin the lining to the main lace of the back, and I'm going to be stitching with 1/2 inch at this part. So go ahead to carefully pin it down so that you don't make mistake when you're stitching it, and pushing the yoke part so that you don't stitch on top of it. So now I'm going to stitch the upper part and the 2 sides of my back. So now going down to the skirts, this is my skirt, and I'm going to be using a 1/2 lining for this. So remember, my skirt stopped at 17 inches. Now the full length of my dress is 57 inches. It's actually 56, but I added 1 inch extra. So when you're measuring a lace, don't use your actual length. So you can just add 3 to 5 inches to your lace. So now I want to use a 1/2 lining, and I want it to stop at 18 inches. So I'm going to add extra 1 inch. So from there, at this point, I'll be using it as my waist, and from there I'll mark 7 inches for my hip. For a much taller person, go ahead to use 8 inches, and I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, add my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So this sewing allowance is not a standard, so I'm going to mark my hip circumference, mark my sewing allowance. So whatever I have at my hip, I'm going to minus 2 inches from it, and I'm going to go ahead to mark it at the lower part. Now I'm going to connect from this point down to my hip point, and from my hip point down to the lower part of the skirt. So now the next thing is just to go ahead to cut out my skirt pattern. So after I'm done cutting out the skirt pattern, I'll place it on another fabric, and I'll be adding my zipper allowance to it, and I'll go ahead to also cut it out. So after cutting it out, I want to place it on my lace right now. So I'll place my full length, which is 57, and mark where I have 17 inches. That is where my pattern is going to start. So remember, my lace is on fold, and the reason why I started measuring from the bottom is because I want the lower part to have a pattern, this pattern that lace always has. So I'm going to go ahead to cut out my skirt, then repeat it for the back, and go ahead to turn it. So this is the front part. I'm going to be placing it on my skirt, which I have already turned, and I'm going to go ahead to shape out the shape I have on the top. So now I'm going to go ahead to pass my boning through it. So I'm using a reginim or sewable boning. You can also use a plastic boning. So I'm going to take this pointy part, place on this part also, and I'm going to pin and stitch with 1/2 inch. So if you're using a plastic boning, it might be difficult because the basque is a bit deep. So this is the back. I've gone ahead to join it, the skirt part, down to with the upper part. So when I was joining my yoke, I forgot to join the yoke of the front and the back together. I forgot that the dress does not have a sleeve. So what I'm going to do now is just to top stitch the armhole area. So when you're sewing yours, please join the yoke of the front and the yoke of the back first and turn it. So now I'm just going to go ahead to turn my own shoulder, and this is what I have, and I went ahead to top stitch on the armhole area of the back. So now I'm going to be placing this together, and the next thing is to go ahead to pin it down. Make sure the waistline is meeting very well, and we're going to start measuring. Place your tape at your underbust measurements, mark your waist measurements, which is 17 inches. My waist measurement is 17 inches, then mark 7 inches from there, which is my hip. And now I'm going to place my tape at my underbust and mark my bust, which is 9 inches. So after this, I'll insert my measurement. What I have here is about 21 inches, and my bust circumference is 16.5. So I'm going to minus what I have there, divide it by both sides, divide it, and whatever I have, I'm going to mark it first. Then I'm going to go ahead to mark my bust circumference. Place my tape, and I'm going to mark my bust circumference at this point. Then at the other part, which is my low under bust, I'm going to measure what I have at my under bust. My under bust circumference is 28 divided by 2. I have 14, and what I have here, I'm going to minus it from that and divide the rest. So I think I have about 17 inches, so minusing it from it, I have 3 inches left, and I'm going to mark 1.5 from here, measure my 14 inches, and connect it down to my waistline. So at the waist point, I'll repeat the same process, take out the excess I have on my waist. So we didn't snatch our waist, so I'll just go ahead to connect. So my waist and my under bust is the same measurement. So at the hip part, I'm going to go ahead to insert my hip measurements at this point. After inserting my hip measurement, I'm just going to connect from my waist down to the hip point. And after connecting from my waist down to my hip point, I'm just going to connect it down to the lower part of my dress. So while connecting it to the lower part of your dress, you want your dress to be fitted at the lower part. What you're going to do is to go ahead and go in by 1.5 inches. So but before I do that, I'm just going to connect from my waist to my hip. So just like I said, go in by 1.5 inches. 2 inches will be very fitted if you want to, or you can even mark 1 inch if you want it to be free. So whatever you have at this knee point, that is what you're going to take to the lower part of your skirt. So I'll just continue following a straight line and mark it to the lower part of my skirt. So after that, I'll go ahead to shape my dress. So after shaping it, this is what I have, and this is what my corset is looking like. So the next step you're going to take right now is that you're going to go ahead and bead it. So I'm trying to mark out what I have because the beading has a pattern that it was following, like a slanted line. So I'm going to go ahead to pass my invisible thread with my beading needle. So when I was passing it, I did not knot it. I didn't tie it at the ending. All I had to do was just to pass it several times. So after passing it, I went ahead to pass it again. So pass it like 2 to 3 times so that you can secure the thread on the fabric. So I started from the side so that I won't have any stitches on my dress. So now I'm going to go ahead to pass my beading. So I'm using a rhinestone, and you notice that it has an opening at the lower part. So go ahead to pass it through that opening, then pass it through your fabric. After passing it through your fabric, go ahead to pass it again through your rhinestone. Now the next step is to pass it through your rhinestone. After passing it through your rhinestone, you can go ahead to pass it through your fabric again. So when you do this, you're going to secure it very well on the fabric, and it's not going to move when you're putting on the dress. So I'm just going to pass it again through the fabric so that it doesn't shift. So after this, I'm going to pass the needle through the dress in between the lining and the main fabric, because you don't want to have stitches at the back of your dress. Go ahead and pass the needle through your rhinestone. So after passing it, you're going to pass it through the dress to secure it on the dress, and after that you're going to pass it through your rhinestone again, the hole you have there. So after passing it through that hole, you're going to go ahead to pass it through the dress again. So after I'm done passing it through the dress, I'm going to go ahead to pass it through in between my main fabric and the lining, and I'm going to go ahead to add another beading. So after I'm done beading, this is what I have. So I noticed that the pattern was not really this, so I had to change the pattern, but I'm not going to do it now. I did that offline. I took out some beads, so I'll continue beading my dress just like the same way that I did the other part, which is passing the beading needle through the hole, then stitch it down to the dress and pass it again through the beading through the hole on the rhinestone, and then after that you're going to go ahead to pass it in between the dress and the main fabric so that you will have an invisible stitch and you won't be having thread showing up at your dress. So after I'm done beading, this is what I have. So this is how it is looking. So now to tie the last rope or thread, you're just going to secure it around the last beading, around the last bead that you have. So it's an invisible thread. By the time you tie and knot, you're not going to see the thread on the dress again. So this is how my beading is looking like. So next, you notice that the dress has some applique or lace patch that was cut out from the dress, so I had to cut out my own, although my lace is blue and I don't have any silver design on it. So I just had to make use of the one that I have on this lace. I went ahead to cut it out and also do this also for the upper part. So after I was done sewing, this is my final look. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please leave your comments at the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up, and in our next video I'll be showing you how to make and attach a structured sleeve to your dress. See you in our next video, and thanks for watching.